Happy collecting, everybody. Welcome back to Stars of the Diamond. My name is Rhett. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different for our vintage card set feature. We're going to be doing sort of a mail day. Recently in the SCP Auctions, they had what they called the Yahtzee Box Find. And it was a vintage collection of cards from right around the mid-1900s, 1910s to the early 1920s, and featured some really, really rare cards. And we were able to acquire a lot of Zeenut cards from 1922 to 1929. It included in this box should be 116 cards from that era. Now, most of these cards I already actually have, so it's going to be a lot of potential upgrades or something like that. But anyways, I thought it would be fun to kind of look through. I haven't looked through the box yet. I just opened the outer box. But you can kind of see here's our SCP Auctions label there. And looks like it's got 116 cards from 1922 to 1929. So in that that find that they had, they were able to locate 8 to 10 extremely rare cards from a set called Texas Tommy. Now, those cards were made by a somewhat obscure candy company in California called the Cardinate Candy Company. Now, they still make one of the products that Cardinate made, and that's the Uno bar. And they revolutionized that particular candy. That was their big thing. But in 1914, they produced a set named after a popular dance of the time called the Texas Tommy. I don't have an example of one of those here at the house. But they're really rare cards, really, really tough to find. And so there was 8 to 10 of those, including a Joe Jackson and a Ty Cobb. But in addition to those cards, they also had about 300 different Zeenut cards in the lot, in that collection, along with about 100 other caramel cards. And so we were able to kind of acquire the one lot that we did, and so I kind of wanted to go through those cards with us today. So we're just going to kind of dive right in. Looks like we got quite a few raw ones in this bag. Oh, yeah, they're in a little bag, so kind of right there. Maybe not the best packaging job of all time, but they are what they are. There wasn't a ton of pictures on in the online catalog as to, kind of what the majority of these looked like. So a little bit of an unknown to a degree. Just going to cut that open so it's easier to kind of slide these out. But so yeah, a couple of these are, fairly rough. Now, these cards originally came with a fairly significant coupon down at the bottom. And based on how well the coupon was removed, that kind of results in what the condition that we see the cards in today. So some of them, obviously fairly carelessly removed. Name is completely missing off of this particular player. This guy, really, really rough. Also really, really rough. And I believe that is, I don't know who that is. Pfeffer, maybe, someone like that. Also missing his name. So we're just going to go through those kind of really, really rough ones. But then also you've got some that are pretty nice. And so you can kind of see on the back here, blank back cards, torn at the bottom. That's where the coupon was at one point attached. But not a bad card there. So I'm just going to be kind of looking through these because I really don't know what we got here. So we got some duplication. So these are 1926. You can kind of see the date on that Connolly. 1926 Cook, Coombe, Hollerson, Holvey, Leslie. And you can see this one was kind of cut pretty circular. It was actually a pretty popular deal back in the day. They would use these cards to gamble with each other. And so each person would bring their collection of cards, and they would actually go to like a wall, and they would use a card almost like a frisbee, and they would throw the card against the wall, and whoever ended up closest to the wall would foreseeably win the stack of cards that you were betting at the time. So and they would call these cards shooters. And so quite often people would customize the cards so that this was probably some kid's shooter. And we've even found examples where people have coated the card in wax or something like that to give it a little bit more strength and thickness to better be thrown in with more accuracy. So even though it's totally in terrible condition and everything like that, the condition of this card is explained by that. And there are people that actually enjoy these shooter cards for that reason. 1926 Lindamore, McPhee, O'Neill, Peters, Redmond. This is Gus Redmond. He actually was an early NFL player. So he was, long time before Bo Jackson or anyone like that. He played both I believe he made it to the major leagues in baseball as well, but he was also a member of an NFL team, professional football. Zollers, 26 Allen, Brian, Christian, Bert Cole. He was a pitcher for a long time. And this is actually a pretty significant card. It's in pretty terrible shape. I'm a little disappointed in this one. Ike Danning is a early player of Jewish ancestry, and so this card tends to be a fairly popular one amongst those that collect that. And there are quite a few people that collect early cards of Jewish ball players. So that's typically a card that's high on a lot of people's want list, and pretty unfortunate condition. It still has quite a bit of value, even in the condition that it's in, but a little bit lower than I was hoping for on that one. Mickey Finn, Murphy, Tom Oliver, Patty Siglin, Ivar Swanson. He played for a long time in the major leagues. Roxy Walters, Burns, Prothro. So this is a guy named Doc Prothro. And he's nicknamed Doc because he was actually a practicing dentist, before he ever signed with any team. And you might recognize the last name Prothro because his son eclipsed him in popularity by becoming a college football Hall of Fame coach. And his name was Tommy Prothro. And so this is Doc Prothro. This is his Tommy Prothro, the coach, who also, I believe, coached in the early to mid 70s for, I think, the Rams and the Chargers as well. But a member of the College Football Hall of Fame. I believe he coached at Oregon State and UCLA. Gus Metz, George Lafayette, Baldwin for Seattle, Billy Lane for Seattle. Seattle cards are always super duper popular. 1920s, okay. Whitey Glasner, he played in the major leagues. Gustav Sandberg. Interesting story. He actually, it's kind of a little bit morbid, but he on a road trip accidentally died by blowing himself up. And he was looking to see if he had any gas in his gas tank, and he, for whatever reason, decided to use a match to do so, and that was not a good move. So Gustav Sandberg, or Gus Sandberg, played in the major leagues and everything, but fairly well known in the baseball world for, actually dying rather strangely. Got 1926 Alley, Cunningham, Davis, Hoffman, Rudy Callio, Ray Keating. He has quite a few cards, and I think like the M101-45 sets. He was a fairly well accomplished pitcher in the major leagues in the mid-teens, but by this time his major league career had sort of ended. Art Kohler, Manny Kopp, Osborne, Merv Shea, Brower, Crockett, Griffin, Hanson, Lang, Flash Camper, that's a good name, Peter Kilduff, Dickie Kerr. So I'm going to set this one aside. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Painter, Williams, Zafel, So these are some 1922 ones. So you can see a little bit earlier. These were mostly 1926 is what we got going on here. So these ones are from 1922, and you can kind of see they had kind of scaled down production into, you know, sort of a smaller, in a lot of ways, less interesting card. But I have a video where I kind of break down the different years, so I'd highly recommend kind of looking at those. But so a fun set of cards. I like the 1922s. They've got sort of a black and white picture with some sepia highlights, and there are some variations in where you can find that sepia. But kind of an interesting set. So we got Chet Chadbourne, Anna Compton, Ducky Pierce, Hampton, Rudy Callio. We saw him earlier on a later card. What a weird pose. Can't imagine Rudy Callio was super excited that that's the pose they decided to use on that. I don't even know what he's doing. Joe Wilhoit, he's pretty cool. Rowdy Elliott, Pete Kilduff again. Willie Cam was a long-time Major League player and, you know, pretty underrated, to be honest with you. One of the best White Sox of the era. And Buckshot May for the Seattle Indians. Again, the Seattle cards are always pretty popular. But again, this one you can kind of see has a little bit of an unnaturally rounded border. So this may have also been used as a little bit of a, you know, shooter card. So pretty cool. So those were kind of the low grade copies, you know, from that lot. So wasn't expecting too much out of there. So we kind of got what I kind of thought we were going to be getting there. So I kind of set these two cards aside. Joe Wilhoit was fairly famous in baseball worlds because I believe he has the longest. So everyone knows about Joe DiMaggio and his hitting streak. I believe he actually has in professional baseball the longest hitting streak known, and it's 70 some odd games, something crazy like that. Obviously not at the major league level, so it doesn't get the same attention that Joe DiMaggio does, but I believe that's what he is well known for. And this guy here, this is Honest Dickie Kerr. Okay, last card of him. He's really well known because he was a member of the 1919 White Sox team. And the 1919 White Sox team obviously is better known as the Black Sox because they were, kind of found guilty by Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis of throwing the World Series and being kicked out of baseball. But Dickie Kerr had quite a World Series that year and was the honest Black Sox. So always a really, really popular card for those that know that it even exists. But the 1926, and there's actually two guys named Kerr in the 1926 set, but this is the guy we're looking for. The other one is named Johnny Kerr. But not a bad card. This is about as nice as you can expect to find, most Zeenut cards. Always have a little bit of a rougher edge on the bottom. But overall not bad. Pretty good eye appeal on that particular card. So kind of some good surprises there. So we'll go through some of these ungraded ones. So they had, kind of set a few aside as, being somewhat more famous people, I suppose, is what these little post-it notes are. But this is Buddy Ryan, 1922. Sam Agnew. There's a couple of him. Pretty rough shape. There's a Walter McCready. He's in the PCL Hall of Fame. I think they may have just kind of chosen some of these guys because they weren't and particularly great players, but they're in decent condition. This guy's interesting, actually. Clyde Nance is that guy's name, and he died in a car accident actually in the year that this card was produced in 1929. Kind of an interesting card. Actually pretty nice, and you can still see portion of that coupon attached at the base of that card. So that really is about as nice as you can expect to find as So we had some technical difficulties there, so we're going to just continue with the video. So going on, these are now from 1929. So Christensen, John Monroe, Eddie Mulligan, there's another one. Johnny Frederick. Right, here's 1927. 1927s are a little bit interesting because they can be found either with this small little number down here, or sometimes they can be found with the number up in the top, like that Paul Strand card. So instead of having sort of that 27 right above the name, it's up in the corner in that big, large, bulbous circle. But just kind of an interesting year. McLaughlin. So we're back to 1926 here. So yeah, these cards are just kind of some of the nicer ones in the group. Stewart, Bill Sweeney, he, I believe, has like T206 cards and stuff back in the day. Dave Ellison. There's another Walter McCready for Seattle. That's always a pretty popular card. Tom Daly, I believe he's an early Canadian major leaguer and everything like that. Howard Lindemore, Truck Hanna. He's largely considered, he was a catcher, one of the best players in the Pacific Coast League from about the mid-1910s, teens to the mid-1920s or 30s. So right about the same time about as Buzz Arlett, Truck Hanna was also one of the best players in the Pacific Coast League. Hugh High, I believe that is that one. Played for the Yankees for a number of years. Neil Mickey Finn. Wally Ritter. Dick McCabe. Chick Ellsworth from 1929 with Seattle. Actually pretty clean cards here. Again, about as nice as you can find Zeenut cards. These are the ungraded ones. So they got some graded. It seems fairly random who they ended up getting graded, but they did some. So here's a Wildfire Schulte. He was in the T206 set. By this time, I think this is his last card he ever had. He was at the twilight of his career, was now playing for Seattle. I think he also has a card in the same set for Oakland. That's a pretty tough one to find. So fun card there. I believe I need that one. Paul Strand. Remy Kremer, or Ray Kremer. He had a long major league career for the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's a pretty clean 1922, even though, despite the technical grade, not very many people collect the Zeenut cards graded. So, I mean, you get some people that prefer them graded, obviously, but a lot of times you're dealing with kind of, you're not going to get a huge bump in price, for a low pop, card in the Zeenut set, because there's just not enough people that collect these in that form. For me personally, it's just a space management issue. There's almost 4,000 cards in the Zeenut series, so having 4,000 graded card holders would just take up an astronomical amount of space. But cool card there. So I'll set that one aside. That's one of the key cards in the lot. Ike Boone was and one of the greatest minor league baseball players of all time. His numbers are pretty crazy and astronomical if you ever have some time to look that up. Frank Schellenbach, and he became, later on in his career, he's I believe in the Pacific Coast League Hall of Fame, but he also became a longtime New York Giants pitching coach in the 1950s, and was there for a number of years. And so a lot of his stuff he's actually probably more famous for his coaching days than he is for his playing days. Here's another Paul Strand. Pretty nice grade, actually, a 5 for that. They gave that even despite that kind of extra little bit of paper down on the bottom. But yeah, as nice as you'll ever find a Zeenut card right there. Clean back, graded 5. I'll take that all day long. But pretty card. I'm sure that's an upgrade for me, so I'm happy about that. Here's a cool one. I love the sweaters, the early sweater cards. So this is Wade or Red Killefer. They misspelled his name. There shouldn't be 2 I's. And he's in the Pacific Coast League Hall of Fame. At this point, he was a longtime manager for like Los Angeles for a number of years and into Seattle and other areas. But yeah, his brother Bill Killefer is in like the Colgan's chip set and everything like that. But Wade was a PCL mainstay for a number of years. Kurt Davis. I think he's featured in like the 33 Gaudy set later on. But this was at the beginning of his career in 1929. It's another one of the key cards. And again, just probably a nice card, so they got that one graded a 5, which is a nice grade. All right, so that kind of leaves us with these 3 cards, which are the 3 key cards in the lot. And we'll start with the one in the middle. So this is a 1926 Zeenut card featuring O'Doul for Hollywood. And in the baseball world, O'Doul is famous. That's Lefty O'Doul. And this is, he would go on to play in the major leagues, at a career batting average near 350, just a crazy good. In my opinion, 100% Lefty O'Doul should be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a great player. He actually had a little bit of a later start to his career, and that's kind of what hurts him. But he also happened to play during a time of unprecedented success at the plate, so his exploits there tend to be overshadowed by some other people, but by all means, he was spectacular. But then in addition to that, one of the things that kind of makes Lefty O'Doul great is that he was instrumental in popularizing baseball in Japan. So he, either one of those, in my opinion, should dictate Lefty O'Doul being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But unfortunately, he's not in, but it's probably just a matter of time. But that's a nice card there. And next one we'll get into is a 1929 Zeenut card of Henry or Prince Oana, who, as you can hear probably from the name, was of Hawaiian native heritage, and is a really, really popular card from the Zeenut series for that reason. And he did go on to play in the major leagues as well, but always one of the key cards in the Zeenut series is those players that have Hawaiian ancestry. There's him, there's Honolulu John Williams, and a few others. But nice card there. And probably the best card that we got in the lot is a 1926 Zeenut card of Earl Averill. Now, Earl Averill, as many of you probably know, is in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And in 1928, he was purchased from the San Francisco Seals by the Cleveland Indians and went on to have a Major League Hall of Fame career. But this is Earl Averill's first ever card. So first time that he was ever pictured on a trading card. Always really, really popular. Just a fun card. So anyways, that's the lot. I'll have to spend some time kind of comparing the cards that we got today in this lot versus some of the ones that I already had. So some I know, like the Oana card here, for sure this is a nicer example than what I had previous. So anyways, I thought it would be interesting to just kind of make a video of, sort of mail day and just kind of see what it's like to, buy a large lot from an auction house and going through the cards. So the next few hours will be fun to kind of see what we've got going on here. But thanks for tuning in to Stars of the Diamond. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and always like our videos. If there is any ever a set that you would like us to feature on this channel, let me know. Okay, but again, hit that subscribe button, get notifications when we post a new video. And as always, guys, happy collecting.